Hello, everybody. ISB Cameron here. This is a first for me. I decided to do a podcast type thing with my friend Griffin while he was in town. Griffin is also an ALT, and we became pretty good friends when we met, I guess, at our prefecture's orientation. But it's my friend Griffin. I'll let him do a little introduction on who he is and where he's from, and then I just plan on asking him questions about him as a Jet. Go ahead and tell me about yourself, Griffin.
All right. I'm Griffin. This is the first for me too, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so.
I live in Misato, Shimane, which is about an hour and a half southwest of here. A little more rural, I'd say. Uh, Literally right up in the mountains. Closest convenience store is like 20 minutes from me, which is real rough.
No good.
I work at two schools, a middle school and an elementary school that are real close. The middle school's only, it's right across the street. And elementary school's a 3-minute drive. And then Tucker, who's also in my town, lives next door. But he works at the middle school, elementary school, about 20 minutes away where the convenience store is.
Oh, wow.
So very convenient for
So
him.
very convenient for him, not so much for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so where are you from in the States? Because you're from the States.
Yeah, so I'm from Rhode Island. That's not New York. That's the state of Rhode Island.
All right. That's good. That's good enough. Let's see. What did I have as my first question here? All right. Generic question that I think a lot of us get. Why did you do Jet? And yes, I'm here for the long story that you were telling me about earlier.
Well, all right. So I was born on no, just kidding. Let's see. When I was in college, I majored in astrophysics, which is not
Japanese.
Not Japanese.
Not Japanese at all.
Or at all.
Maybe to some, it's similar.
yeah. So yeah, I majored in astro and minored in humanities. And over the course of my college career, I became more and more interested in the humanities, particularly philosophy and religion. I remember my junior year, somewhere in Boston, at a mall, there was a Barnes and Noble where my friend worked, and we went there, and I was in they had like a pretty decent philosophy section, and most Barnes and Nobles don't. And I was looking at, and when they have a philosophy section and they have Eastern thought in the philosophy section, that's how you know it's a good bookstore.
Oh, okay.
So they had a book called Hardcore Zen, which was just like, at that point in my life, I had just recently gotten into more hardcore music at the end of college or at the end of high school into college.
Right.
So I saw that title, and I had like heard about Zen Buddhism, like just I knew the name, and I read the first like page and was like, yep. So I bought that and read it. It was by a guy who grew up during like the whole like punk rock era, like generation before us, I guess, and was like a punk rocker, and then discovered Zen Buddhism, studied Japanese, went on jet for a couple of years, stayed in Japan for a while, and ended up becoming a Zen Buddhist monk, I guess. He was like ordained.
Wow.
And he actually, I think he's living in California now, and he like runs his own kind of little Zen center, which is really cool. So reading that, that was really cool. So that got me into Zen Buddhism.
Right.
And then Japanese in general. I mean, since I was a little kid, I was always obsessed with Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokemon cards and all that. Play the games. Still play the games. This really has nothing to do with, I think, why I came to Japan or anything. But my grandmother's Japanese.
Oh, okay.
My step grandmother. So my grandfather remarried. After my grandmother died, after they had kids together.
Right.
My mom. And it's funny because I tried to explain that to my a lot of my kids and my coworkers, like,
Mhm.
oh, like my grandmother's Japanese, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how's that possible? And I'm like, oh, like I'll explain, like, oh, like my grandfather remarried. And I try to explain it in English and a little bit of Japanese, and after the third or fourth time that I gave this like intro lesson to classes,
Yeah.
I realized that the Japanese teachers were explaining to the kids that my grandfather had 2 wives.
Ah, so not quite the case.
And they were just like, oh yeah, like, I mean, that's just how they do it.
That's
you know?
just how
And,
Americans
like,
are.
oh, they're like, oh, my grandfather's, Australian and my grandmother's English, but then my grandfather remarried. They're like, yeah, second wife. And they're like, oh,
2 wives.
futatsu.
Yeah.
Futari, yeah, like 2
Yeah.
wives. It's like,
Yeah.
no.
I've had my fair share of things getting lost in translation and not working out so well. But back to why you did
Yeah. So, things like, Pokemon is just like a thing that I was interested in. I found out way later that it was actually Japanese. I didn't know until I was like, middle school, high school.
Yeah.
And then I got into a lot of anime when I was in college. So my friends in astrophysics were interested in anime, so I got into anime, and I really wanted to be able to like watch anime in the original Japanese. I thought that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And I had gotten into Japanese music just by listening to a lot of anime songs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be able to, listen to it like a native. So I started I decided I was gonna like just research like starting to teach yourself Japanese just to see if I would like it, because I've been learning Spanish my whole life, but I was never really interested in learning Spanish. Like, it'd be cool if I woke up tomorrow fluent in Spanish. That'd be pretty awesome. But doing the work was like I didn't really like it. I think mostly because it was forced on me from when I was a kid. And I started teaching myself hiragana and katakana, building blocks of the language, and I just liked learning it. So I decided, and that was the summer going into my senior year, so then I decided to take Japanese during the 2 semesters of my senior year. So Zen Buddhism, learning Japanese, and then at the same time, like, I really wanted to I was thinking about grad school. I was thinking about, I really didn't know, but I wanted to take a year off, and I really liked the idea of going to a culture that was influenced by a religious tradition that was totally different from the one I grown up in, because I'd grown up, my mother I'm pretty sure I was baptized Methodist.
Okay.
Because my dad's family was Methodist.
Okay.
And my mom was Catholic. And then I grew up in Rhode Island going to an Episcopal church.
Oh, wow.
So I went to Catholic school pretty much my whole life. So, like,
you had Western religion down.
Yeah. And I was aware of kind of the nuances and the differences.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what got me into studying religion in general, because I was like, even in Christianity, there was a lot of differences in, like, between Protestants and Catholics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I got interested in Buddhism, and because I had read that book, I was like, Zen Buddhism, and then I was like, Japan, and then I was like, Pokemon, and then
So short answer, you'd probably just say like the culture. The culture of Japan is kind of, I mean, not just culture. There's obviously a lot of factors at play, but if someone forced you to single answer, you would say culture.
I would say a lot of things from a lot of different angles kind of just pushed me in the direction of Japan. Like, I don't think it was my choice necessarily. Like I could have chosen to go somewhere in Africa. Like, you know what I mean?
But other factors pointed you to Japan.
Just like, you gotta go to Japan.
I see. That makes sense.
So,
that's
a lot of
that's cool.
stuff.
Gotcha. All right. Well, the next question I had, since I know this about you, you have a girlfriend back in the States.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get deterred from doing jet because of that aspect. So I guess something I've wanted to ask is, what's it like having a girlfriend on the other side of the world, and what are some things that you two do to kind of stay in touch? And I mean, because that has to be difficult, being not only the time difference but the distance. There's a lot of things that make it tough. So I guess, what are some things, if that's an okay question?
So my girlfriend's name is Rebecca, because I'm just gonna say, instead of saying my girlfriend, I'm just gonna say Rebecca.
Fair
So
enough.
she so we started dating. So we met at the beginning of my sophomore year. She's a year below me in school. Yeah.
College.
My sophomore year of college, she was a freshman. So we had been dating for, I guess, or no. So we met when I was a sophomore. We didn't start dating until October of my junior year.
Okay.
So we had been dating for, I guess, about a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half, when I left. So I think that the idea, there's this idea that like long distance relationships just don't work.
Right. I think that's.
And I think that's, as like a black and white kind of thing, like isn't really true. In my experience, and then the experience of other people that I've talked to, like if you meet someone and you want to date them and then you leave, that's probably not gonna work.
Right.
But if you meet someone, date them for a long time, and then go and do something for an extended period of time, I think it's a totally different story.
Oh yeah.
That's fair. Because you build, your relationship over the course of however long you're together before you don't have to be apart for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And that can, depending on where you are then, that can, decide, how things end up. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I mean, I was starting this whole new adventure, and she knew that I was going into this, and she wanted me to be able to go into it, like, not free in the sense of, like, I could be with other people, but free in the sense of, like, the possibility that I could end up staying here, and if I ended up staying here, then, maybe that would mean that we would have to break up, or maybe that would mean she would come after she graduated.
Okay.
So, I would say, I don't know, I mean,
the big thing from what I've heard, not to cut you off, but it sounds like, obviously you were mature about it, but it sounds like that you guys simply just talked about your options of what to do if you did come here, and you were just very aware of the situation instead of panicking about it, I guess, like some people might. You hashed out some options, and like you were very aware of what you were doing, and you planned for it, just like you planned for anything.
we just didn't, something that I stressed a lot to her, especially because I was the one starting this whole new adventure, and she was gonna have to. So I left in the summer, coming here in July. So she was gonna just basically go back to school, and the only difference in her life was gonna be that I wasn't in it anymore.
Right.
When I'm starting this whole new thing.
Right.
So it would have been so much easier for me, So I think it was much harder for her, in the beginning, because it was just her whole life, just not me in it anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it hasn't been an issue, is what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, honestly, honestly, I would say our relationship has gotten better. And in the beginning, the first few weeks were tough. Like because I wanted to be open about I didn't want to limit myself.
Yeah.
And she didn't want me to be limited as well. And she's a lot more, I think both of us were just like very honest with each other and honest with ourselves about like the reality of the situation, because I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on this program and we're going to stay together and we're going to make it. Because then when you say that, it's like,
it almost puts a strain on.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't know what's going to happen, And it's like anything could happen.
It's a very optimistic, like idealist, perfect situation. Like
we just tried to be as realistic about it as possible. Yeah, and it was a little easier for me than it was for her.
Yeah,
but
let's say I've learned that about you in my months of knowing you. You're a very real person. You're very. I can't convey that to them because I've known you for, half a year now. Yeah, but you're a very real person that tells it as it is, and you don't. It's not that you don't sugarcoat things. You're just very, like you said, you're very realistic. You're not gonna put this false perfect, like you don't know the outcome of things, so don't put a false, which is very, very nice at times. It's a very good way to look at things. But
I just try to be I just try to be honest in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah, which is great.
So yeah, and she was just here.
Yeah, I was actually segueing into my next thing. I was going to talk about your winter break, where she actually came.
Yeah, so she
and
came.
visited.
So I won't tell the whole story, but she ended up having a terrible travel experience to get here. She ended up getting here like 36 hours later because of flight stuff, storms, whatever. But it ended up being a great trip. I mean, she was here and it was great, and we hung out all the time, and it was cool having someone there because during the week usually, and sometimes even during the weekends, like if I don't see anybody, like I go to work and I come back to my apartment and I sit in my kotatsu and I watch TV or read.
It can be a very
so having someone there all the time and having her there, who I basically lived with, and I was a senior, was cool. And then all of a sudden, she was gone, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like I remember coming back to my apartment and being like, like she was here, now she's not.
Yeah,
like, that's crazy.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because actually on my trip home, which I think I mentioned in my last video, but it was weird because when I was home for 3 weeks, and while I was home, I started to feel like Jet was just a dream, like it never happened.
Yeah, so
like
many
it felt so
yeah.
fake, like it felt like there was no way I was just living in Japan. That can't be real. And then oddly enough, when I came back, my first week here, I had the exact same like reverse. I was like, I was not just in America.
That's what Sarah said.
It's very weird to travel. I know I mentioned this to friends in the last video, but planning a trip to your hometown, which I don't know the opposite of having someone come here, but planning a trip to your hometown is a very odd experience because I lived there for 22 years, and then I planned a vacation to it's not a place I would ever imagine a vacation, but it was a vacation for me, and that was really
at my parents' house.
Yeah, so I have a very similar experience of like it feels like everything's back to normal, or like it just, I don't know, the Jet experience you had before being with that familiar presence feels fake, and then once that person's gone, them being there feels fake. It's a really weird thing to explain.
It's weird.
But that's cool. And you guys got to travel around like some big cities.
We went to Kansai region, Nara, Osaka, Kyoto. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Went to Pokemon Center in Osaka. That was cool.
Pokemon centers are the best. Not so much the one you and I went and saw.
The one in Hiroshima.
That was kind of
lame. In the wall. There's like 3 stuffed animals and like 8 packs of Pokemon cards.
Yeah, if you're into Pokemon and you come to Japan, you have to go to a Pokemon Center. But
maybe go to Osaka,
maybe do a little more research on the one you go to.
There's 3 in Tokyo.
There's 3.
There's 3 of them. Those are the biggest ones.
Wow.
The one in Osaka is pretty good.
Seen you do this. Sorry, that's my heater. If you can hear that, it jingles when it's low on kerosene, but just ignore it. You doing that made me think the way they do numbers here for hands. Have you noticed this?
No.
So 5. I mean, this is all normal. But once they get to 6, they'll put their.
They put them here. Yeah.
And I've noticed that I start to do it, just like when I'm.
Funny.
Yeah, if I talk to my mom or somebody on video chat and I hold up a number, I'll start to do this.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because like.
It's an easier way to see it, but it's still strange that it's a habit that I picked up, which I guess. I didn't write it down as a question, but it'd be good. Are there any habits you've noticed that you've picked up that are kind of a Japanese?
Definitely mindset? Like going like that to say no. It's like no.
Yeah.
Like no.
I tend to do this one. Like if something's wrong, throw up the X. They tend to do that. But
yeah. I think there's gotta be things that when I go home, people are gonna be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
No, like, oh, sorry.
I definitely had.
I'm a little Japanese.
I definitely had a reverse culture shock. I haven't told
bowing
you.
in general to everyone. And everything.
I didn't do any bowing, but the ones that got me, obviously, driving wasn't too bad. But I told you about driving, how when I finally got back to Japan, it felt normal to drive on the other side again, which was strange to me.
Yeah.
But the big one that I talked about in my last video, not saying bless you. I completely stopped saying bless you. Yeah. So when people would sneeze in America, like I wouldn't say anything. And I have a friend who's one of those, bless his heart, can be stubborn, but when he sneezes and you don't say bless you, he'll like ask you to bless him. And so he like did that to me, and I was like, no, like what are you talking about? So I definitely
can't do that.
That and sizes, dude. Sizes are gonna blow your mind when you go back to America. Like cup sizes. Like if you go to like a McDonald's, it's gonna blow your mind.
Yeah, I bet, because I found this really cool bug in like I think it was a hard off in Izumo.
Hard off. Wait, can we explain hard off?
Yeah, hard off is just like Like there's Book Off, which is the one.
Book Off's probably the most popular, and I don't want to call it a thrift shop because I feel like that gives you
No,
a
that
bad
would be
view.
Hard Off. I feel
Yeah,
like.
Hard Off is probably more of a thrift
Book
shop.
Off is used books and usually like DVDs.
Yeah, DVDs, CDs, video games, some electronic stuff, but predominantly books. And they're normally they have new copies of things, but it's also a place where people can sell theirs and you can buy like a used copy
great.
for cheap.
I've gotten so much.
It's fantastic. It's 100% recommend. Hard Off is like I don't want to say a worse, but like a lower version of Book Off in my opinion.
It's more.
It's more.
You don't know what you're gonna get. Like you could like look for a Hard Off and something could come up and you go there.
Yeah.
And they'll have like.
I would say Hard Off is definitely more of like.
They'll have all
a thrift
clothes.
shop. Yeah, it's.
And then you'll go to another one and they'll have like one aisle of clothes.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Goodwill, I guess, is the best.
Yeah, and they have tons of like really cheap dishware and stuff. So I got these mugs that were like really cute and like small, and like now when I make tea, I'm like. It's like a nice amount of tea.
Yeah.
But then I have mugs that I brought from home, and they're just ginormous now. Like, they're so big.
Yeah.
So unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, when I went back to America, the first thing I got when I landed in Minneapolis was there was an Arby's, and I got a meal there. And out of habit, because to me, mediums here are perfect. They're about the size of that mug there. Like, cups are great. So I said medium out of habit. Oh, my goodness. The cup that I got was just like not what I was expecting at all. And I immediately text my mom, and I was like, have cups always been this big? Like, this is a medium. This is not okay. She was like, yeah, Cameron, they've always been this big. And I was like, how did I forget in 6 months that, like...
Yeah, those little things are going to be weird. Something that Tucker said to me was that the amount of advertisements that he sees there, especially when he's driving around, like around here, I mean, it's probably different, like, near Tokyo and big cities. But
I don't
just driving on the highway
billboards in general really aren't a thing here. I hardly ever see billboards.
It's like you see nothing on the highway. It's like you just gotta make sure you don't hit old people.
That and speaking of highways, while we're on this topic, my big thing, because while I was home, I went back to my university, which is like a 2-hour drive from my town. I went to watch a basketball game, and highways are nuts. Like highways here, have you been on like the expressways and the highways here? So like. There's rules. Everyone follows the rules. Yeah. Everyone stays in the slow lane. Yeah, everyone stays in the slow lane and then only passes like when necessary.
And the fastest people are going 65.
But I totally forgot in America, dude, people just bob and weave through. I mean, they bob and weave not necessarily by choice, but because people are in the wrong lane going slowly. But I was just like, I was freaking out. I was more scared to drive on those highways than I am here, which is really funny. But yeah, it's you'll see. I mean, especially. After being here for a whole year, not going home. That was just for me after 6 months, half a year. So I can't even begin to imagine what a whole year and the culture shock that you're gonna face. From that.
Yeah. So I'm only staying the 1 year. So I submitted my.
He's done. He's done after this one.
Contracting paperwork to not recontract.
God, you are doing perfect segues for me. I just like it's almost like you looked at this. Yeah, it's the next. Look at them the next question was, how do you feel deciding to finish after 1 year? Which I mean, a lot of these questions are stuff you and I have talked about privately, but for this and for other people, I thought would be fun.
Yeah. So coming into the program, I was like, I could be here a year. I could come here and hate it. I could come here and love it and want to stay forever. I could come here and become a Zen Buddhist monk and no one ever hear from me again. Who knows?
A lot of options.
And then after I was here for a couple of months, actually, I was like, I want to be here and this is great, but I want to go to grad school.
Yeah.
And I want to go to grad school in the U.S. And that was like a thought that I had that I was like, yeah, I think I want to do that. And then it kind of just built up, and then being with Rebecca for a week or so was like, yeah, I gotta go back.
Yeah.
But it's, like I explained to you before, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the U.S.
Yeah, there's nothing forcing you to leave here. I like the way you worded it. There's nothing here making you want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Just things back in America wanting you to come home are stronger.
Right.
Yeah, there's not a negative thing here necessarily. It's just that there's more positive back home. And the other thing that I've held on to early on when you decided, I think when you first decided before you submitted your paperwork, you were talking about how you realized you wanted to go to grad school because when you would come home from work, you would just listen to lectures.
Yeah, I'd listen to lectures and read and.
Yeah, you were pretty much doing work you would do in grad school without being in grad school.
And I was in school. And I was studying Japanese was cool, but being in class and preparing for class, I was just it's like, this is just not what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know? And I came thinking, like, hey, maybe I'll, like, be here and really want to be an ALT or really want to be an elementary school teacher, come back to the U.S. and do that. But I don't think that's, I mean, I talked to my mom about this because she's a 5th grade teacher. And, you know, in order to, like, you know, for her, in terms of growth as a person, she grows in the sense of year after year learning how to best teach the kids. You know? And like she learns from them, she learns from the research she does, you know, from all her experience, stuff like that, and she grows in that way. I'm not, you know, I'm interested in growing in other ways. And it's through
not
things.
Teaching,
it's not through that.
It's not
that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's funny because, like I said when we were talking earlier, because he and I actually went on a trip. It's about 8 p.m. now. He got here about 1. We went to the city nearby and we did some shopping, kind of hung out, and we're gonna hang out later. But I thought it'd be fun to do this. But when we were talking on the drive, I was telling him how it's funny how I understand what he's saying, but from a polar opposite perspective of, you know, I came here thinking, well, because for one, the little bit that I talked to my predecessor, she's great. She's really cool. From what people had told me when I got here, you know, she really worked with the kids. She talked to the kids a lot, and I was like, man, I've got some big shoes to fill.
I felt
so
the
like
same way.
In my mind, I was like, what if I get there and the kids don't like me? What if I hate this job? But for me, it's been the polar opposite. Like I've learned that I've loved it. It's something. When I was in college, I never really thought I would want to be a teacher, but now having this experience, again, the opposite of you, I feel like, man, I could go back and I could be a teacher. I could really enjoy that. So it's just funny to me how, like you said, you enjoy this now, but it's like you were saying earlier with things pushed you to come to Japan. Things are pushing you and shaping you to realize, okay, this experience was good, but I think that's the really neat thing. I think the funniest thing to me is that you watched lectures when you came down to school. Like that's I was so happy to be done with college. I loved college. I loved the people that I met at college. It was great and all. When I graduated, never wanted to be in another lecture.
I felt like I definitely needed a break, like after college, and I was so done with science. Because it was like throughout my junior year, I was figuring out like, okay, I need to start making decisions where like I want to get like I really liked learning what I was learning, and I'm really glad I learned it, and I don't have any regrets about majoring in astronomy and physics, but I didn't want to go into the field. Because I think that for me, the reason that I want to now do, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last 30 minutes, but I want to go to grad school for philosophy.
I don't think you did mention.
No. And I think that my interest in astrophysics, I don't see them as like, I went into astro and now I'm like jumping over here. It's like really like, I went into astronomy because I remember I applied to Villanova University, that's where I went, for computer engineering. And I was in their engineering, I got into the engineering school and I was going to go for engineering. And I think like 3 weeks before orientation, I switched to astrophysics. And it was because I remember looking at their classes, the classes for the major.
For
and
engineering?
Like, no, for astro. And being like, this is so cool, like learning about space and stars and black holes and stuff, because
how to build rockets.
Yeah, right. Physics and astronomy, like that, at the time, it was like, this is, like, if I learn this stuff, like, this is me acquiring the knowledge that humanity knows about the nature of reality at this point in time. I was like, that's I want to know. I want to know the truth. I want to know what the deal is with,
you can't handle the truth.
You know, the world. No, clearly not. That's why, that's why I'm not doing it anymore.
Sorry.
So after a few years in astronomy, I'd gotten like the baseline knowledge of what we know so far in astronomy, and I still like follow,
astronomy
a lot of
news.
So like, I mean, there's a lot of new stuff going on in astronomy now. Like, for example, real quick, gravitational waves were just discovered in the last year. Gravitational waves were
not gravity. We knew gravity existed,
right? Of course, gravitational waves were hypothesized by Einstein 100 years ago.
Okay.
As a thing that probably exists, but we didn't have the technology at the time to detect it, and it's really hard to detect because in order to detect it, you need a super crazy like gravitational event to occur, and it'd be really hard to find one, let alone be pointed in the right direction in the sky and have one, be detected. So like if you have some detector, you got to point it in a particular direction in the sky. That's a field of view, and it's the thing that's occurring needs to be in that field of view. But anyway, there was two supermassive black holes that turned into one super giant,
super
massive black hole, and that set ripples. And we had basically the detector is this giant like couple kilometer long like X basically, and it's like this and like this, and it's basically what happens is when a gravitational wave passes by, the length of the beams change like a ridiculously small amount, like less than millimeters. And the detection is like it's so minuscule, it's crazy. But of course, right near the black holes are light years, like 100,000 light years away.
Right.
So when you're near it, it would be a much bigger change, but from this far away. So anyway, that's new stuff.
Yeah. That was quite a tangent.
Yeah. So
sorry about that.
So I still want to keep up with that.
Yeah.
Like that stuff's
interesting
cool,
stuff.
But it's like that isn't like I just wanted to know where we were in terms of that stuff. So it didn't fulfill my curiosity basically. And what
didn't scratch the itch.
Yeah, I guess.
I've always wanted to say that.
Just wherever that itch is. But I really liked my humanities classes and really enjoyed those and really enjoyed reading and stuff like that. And I had been into that a little bit in high school and stuff, but I never thought I was like good at writing or anything like that. But I had done well in my classes in college, so I kind of went in that direction. And been continuing in that direction. So after JET, I still want to continue with Japanese and Japan and Japanese culture.
Yeah.
I still want to continue to study Japanese and in
go.
college, because in grad school usually for philosophy, most philosophy programs are are Western philosophy.
Oh, okay.
But I want to do kind of a comparative philosophy type PhD program. So if I could go to grad school, study Eastern and Western philosophy and learn Japanese toward whatever thesis I would write, that'd be ideal.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. I just want everyone to know this is why I hang out with Griffin, because he's probably one of the smartest people I've met while being here. He definitely pushes my brain limits. Yeah, I gotta put you down. You're too smart, man. Gotta put you down.
Well, at least I understand.
Between you and Tucker, dude, I gotta put one of you down.
Oh man.
But no, I think that's the cool thing about JET is even though you did it and you're done after 1 year. In my opinion, I guess I can't fully speak for you, but in my opinion, it opened the door for you. It solidified that you wanted to do grad school.
I wouldn't have been able to the amount of stuff that I figured out about myself, and it sounds so cliche. I hate that.
Cliche things are the worst.
I found myself. I didn't find myself. If anything, I've read a lot of Zen Buddhism. If anything, I found out that there is no self to find, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, please don't.
But I realized that there are things that I want. Yeah. And at the and before, when I was graduating from college, I was like, oh, I don't know what I want. Who am I? And then
it kind of just.
Yeah, it was kind of wait, I want to do this, and that's okay. I'm gonna go and pursue that, and then if it ends up not being what I thought, then I'll just go and pursue something else. I don't need to be sure what I'm gonna do and where I'm gonna be.
It's kind of
5 years from now, let alone 20 years.
It's a ludicrous thing. That's why I hate, and I think it was high school mainly, maybe a couple times in college. Always getting the question, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? I don't know. I'm gonna be a different person. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, 5 years ago I would have been 18. I probably would have said I want to live in Japan, but there's no way I would have been I want to be a jet in this exact town doing this with these two. No. But now that I'm here, it's yes, this I can't imagine doing anything else.
If you had asked me, I would have been I want to go to grad school for astrophysics and become a professor in astronomy.
Yeah,
and
but
now
it's
I'm
just
like, now I'm in Japan.
No, yeah.
Like,
It's just, you can't. It's like I was saying earlier with my friend in college when we wanted to start a podcast. I still want to start a podcast. I realize it's difficult to do it, but like he and I kind of both set these unrealistic goals for ourselves. Not unrealistic goals, but like before we'd even recorded a podcast, just having fun, which is where the whole idea originated from. We were like, this is what we're going to be called. This is going to be our Twitter. Like, we're going to record on these days at this time. We're going to, it's like, I just got overwhelmed before we even did anything.
Because it's important to, like, plan that stuff out. Because if you just, like, say, like, oh, we should start a podcast. We should start a podcast. It's like, oh, yeah, let's totally do that. And then you never really do it.
Right.
But at the same time, like, I feel
like you can't
it's gotta manifest authentically.
Yeah,
it to work.
It can't be like we essentially had this business plan, but no ambition to do to do the business at all. Whereas we should have tried the business, and then once we realized we enjoyed the business, okay, now let's fine tune. Here's the dates we're gonna do this.
You just gotta like do like little things, you know.
Yeah.
I struggle with that too when it comes to.
I mean, I feel like everyone does. That's the big thing. But I mean, obviously, you figured it out. I mean, I think you figured it out a little bit while being here.
I figured some stuff out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I figured some stuff out about myself.
One thing I need is bookstores.
Bookstores.
English bookstores.
Yeah. It's for people who have ambition to do this, which if you don't, I'm sorry that I've uploaded. Well, it's not even done yet. We're at 36 minutes. If you've made it this far and you have no ambition to do yet, thank you for watching and listening. But I'm sorry if this has not been what you wanted. But yeah, when you come to Japan, granted, we do live in the second smallest prefecture in Japan. Second least populated prefecture in Japan.
Most rural.
Even when we go to cities, I think even when we went to Hiroshima, like the actual city, it's still very like you're not gonna find any English books.
Oh no! I mean, when I went to Osaka, in Osaka, the biggest bookstore in Japan is in Osaka.
Yeah,
I went there and they have
it's
6 floors. Yeah, it's 6 floors, and there's a floor for Western books, and there's a good like 5 or 6 rows of English books, you know, and so that's a good amount. But that's like if you go to a bookstore in Hiroshima, there's probably a bookstore in Hiroshima that has English books, but it's like, you know,
it's not gonna be.
It's like
it's
the bed. It's like just the bed.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very
that's
small.
How many books you get.
Like that. I mean, they can't see it, but my bookshelf like right there.
Yeah, maybe this bookshelf like.
Which is not. It's
they might
not
have 100
large.
books or something like that on.
Yeah.
First, because people aren't gonna buy them, but yeah, I need. Because coming here, it's like that's what when I came here, that's what helped me discover that I was like I need to read this stuff, and I like ordered a bunch of books on Amazon, but it's they don't have as big as a selection. It's not as easy to get stuff.
Not only that, we were also talking earlier about Amazon, especially when you order stuff from like the American Amazon, it can take like 1 to 3 months to get here. Like it's not a quick. It's not like back in the States when it's like, oh, let me just do Amazon Prime, it's here the next day. Like you kind of have to wait unless they have it on Amazon.com Japan, which they don't normally do. It's very rare to find
They have some like.
I found Mountain Dew on there the other day, and I almost ordered some.
Oh wow!
That's really random, away from books.
They have
it made me think of that.
They have English books on Amazon.com/JP, but they have to be pretty mainstream.
Yeah.
If not, like you can order them, and people are selling them.
Yeah.
But you have to pay much for shipping, and it could take 1 to 3 months and all that stuff.
There's a lot of things that come into play. But speaking of all this traveling, I guess. I just thought of this question. I didn't write it down on my handy notes that I wrote 2 minutes before doing this. You, I would say, out of the people that I know that have been here for 1 year, have probably traveled to the most places already.
Oh, yeah?
I guess that's true. I would say, I only know, like, you and 4 other people.
I still have another 6 months, even though it's like, I'm leaving. But I've only been here 6 months. I still got another 6 months.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I guess the question I wanted to ask is, what's the because we were talking earlier about how you don't really like touristy places.
Yeah.
But what would you say is like the best place that you've seen since being here? Whether it be, I mean, touristy or not, but like, what was a place where you were like, I don't want to say, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say. The best.
Yeah. Well, so I've been to.
You've been to a lot.
So I've
You
been.
can list them if you want.
Yeah. So we're in Shimane. I've been around Shimane. Like Izumo Taisha's pretty big, even for Japan, because it's
So to be clear, I think I've explained, but Shimane is the prefecture, which is the equivalent of like a state in the United States.
Yeah.
So like Indiana, Ohio.
but smaller.
But
Japan's
yeah,
the size of California.
since they're prefectures, they're smaller than states.
Yeah.
So Shimane prefecture, similar to a state. We both live in this prefecture, just in different towns. So
yeah. So
Izumo Taisha is
went to Izumo Taisha. That's
the shrine that's about
like
an hour from here.
One of the like 5 like most important shrines in Japan.
Yeah, it's a very important shrine. I think its belief is like good partnership. Is that right?
I don't remember. I just know that like apparently all the gods go there during the festival in October.
I might be thinking of something else. Yeah, that's the big thing. All the gods. So you don't know. Quick thing about Japan, which I'm sure if you're interested in Jet, you know. Japanese believe in a lot of gods.
Yeah, Shintoism.
They have a lot of gods for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at this specific shrine, Izumo Taisha, all of the gods go there and stay. And if I remember
they're there
correctly,
for like a certain amount of time.
Yeah, they're there for a certain amount of time, and it's supposed to be like to decide who receives good blessings or good. There's a reason why
there's a bunch of stuff, stories, mythology.
But that's why it's so famous. That's why people
learn more about it.
That's why people. That's why people like it all across Japan, even though it's in our small prefecture. Yeah. Because it has.
So if you go to Tokyo and like you're foreign and they're like, oh, you know, what are you doing here? Like I'm like, oh, I'm an ALT. It's like, oh, where? Shimane. They're gonna be like.
Probably all they're gonna know is Izumo Taisha.
Shimane?
Yeah.
Where's that? Izumo Taisha? Oh, that's Shimane? Oh.
Yeah.
These are Japanese people.
Yeah. We're gonna finish your story in a second about all the places you've gone.
Oh yeah.
But you saying that actually, as I told you, I got an interview when I landed in Tokyo on my trip back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and when they asked me, I told them I was an ALT. Literally word for word, what you just said. They asked me like, "What are you doing in Japan?" I'm an ALT. Oh, where are you living? And I was like, "Oh, I'm living in Shimane." And they were like, "Shimane," and I was like, "Yeah, Okuizumo in Shimane." And like I explained to them, and they were like, finally, like I don't know who figured it out, but one of them finally clicked, and they're like, "Oh," because I think is the Okuizumo. And they heard Izumo, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and they finally pieced everything together. But yeah, there was that moment of like, I don't even know where that's at.
Yeah, well, it's like when I say Rhode Island, like half the people I talk to, especially people from all over the country.
Rhode Island's like this big on the map, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right next to Boston. It's right next to Massachusetts. Right under Massachusetts, next to.
It's in the New England area, isn't it?
Yeah, next to Connecticut.
I know the United States.
Next to Connecticut, under Mass. It's called the Ocean State. It's right on the ocean. It's really small.
All I know about Rhode Island is that's where Family Guy takes place.
That's true.
But back to your story.
Yeah, so Shimane, Izumo Taisha. I've been to Tottori, which is right next door. I just went to a burger fest, which was really fun. And then we went to Hiroshima. Yeah, that was cool.
It's 3 places.
I went to the Kansai region, which that's just like Nara, Kyoto, Osaka, that part of Japan.
The Kansai region.
Yeah, so I went to those 3 cities, and then I think that's about it. I'm planning on going to Taiwan during spring break, and then hopefully going to South Korea.
Possibly, we will both be going to South
Golden
Korea.
Week. Yeah. Just because I'm in this area, it's like I want to.
Yeah, I think you said six different places. I mean, that's
major
still a lot.
Places. Yeah, I haven't really been to Tokyo yet. Oh, I'm going to Tokyo in a couple weeks.
So maybe that's the 7th place I was thinking of. But.
Yeah, but what I was explaining to you earlier, like what I've noticed for me is like, and this is part of me coming here and figuring this out, and I think this has a lot to do with me and not necessarily people in general.
Right.
But I feel like it applies to people in general as well. Like there's like traveling, and going to see stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like isn't like to me it's like whatever. Like,
yeah.
Like coming to Japan and experiencing living in Japan, like that's awesome. But like going to, let's say, like in Kyoto, like the main Buddhist temple there is the bronze Buddha. It's the biggest Buddha statue in Japan.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I didn't see it. But I saw
It's beautiful.
I saw like the Todaiji temple.
Okay.
I saw the temple. I took a picture of it. Really good picture. But it like seeing it versus seeing a picture of it, like really wasn't that big a difference for me
Okay.
because like I'm actually really into like obviously like I'm into Zen Buddhism. I'm interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're interested in something, let's say, like if you're interested in traveling, you're interested in sightseeing, then like cool, like that's what you want to do, like go
Yeah, like
sightsee, like
that's
that's
you.
awesome, check it off the list, like that's great. But for me, it's like I wanted to come to Japan and live here, and not just visit,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted Japanese culture to infect like who I am.
Right.
I didn't want to just come here and be like I'm a Westerner in this foreign place.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to like like make roots,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And something that I've realized about myself is like, if I'm gonna go and do something somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
like go on vacation, I'm gonna go on vacation somewhere because, like let's say if I wanted to go to Europe,
Yeah.
like what do you do when you go to Europe? You go to Paris, you see the Eiffel Tower. You go to London, you see the London Eye. You go to I don't know, like Madrid, and you see
Madrid.
what's it called?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Probably
You
know.
see, it's like you.
There
What
are
do you do?
certain.
You go to Europe and you Google,
Yeah.
what stuff, what's tourist stuff,
Yeah,
and
it's like the same when people come to America. They're gonna see
yeah,
like the Statue of Liberty.
and it's not.
And all
I
that
feel
stuff.
like I don't know how many of these people like did they go and does it mean anything to them? You know what I mean? It's like you just go and you look at it. It's like when people go and see the Mona Lisa and there's lining up out the door to see the Mona Lisa and it's
you
just
just look
tiny
at a
little
picture
and you're like,
I
what's
think
the big deal?
that's the funniest thing to me that people don't understand. So like the Mona Lisa, I think when everyone's growing up, you expect it to be this big, like as big as this flag back here. Like you expect it to be this big, extravagant thing.
It's maybe as big as the symbol on the flag.
Yeah, when in reality, it's like maybe.
Yeah, it's about that big.
It's like it's like this big. It's not that large, although that kind of looks big on camera. But it's like a piece of paper. It's not as big as people make it out to be. It's a pretty.
People go and see it because of the hype.
Just to say
honestly.
you saw it,
and
yeah.
It's like, and like there are beautiful things there, of course. But if I was gonna go there, I would want. If I was gonna go to Europe, like I would want to check out Oxford.
Yeah.
I'd want to go look at the universities.
Yeah.
I'd want to go to the biggest bookstores.
Right.
There because it's like that's the stuff I'm into.
Okay.
And like going to see a bunch of temples in Kyoto because if you're interested in Zen Buddhism and you want to see temples, you go to Kyoto. Like that's where you go.
Yeah.
But what I've done is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's my heater. It's about to run out of juice.
So
let's go ahead and
it's getting pretty hot.
Yeah, we'll
go. So in my town,
yeah.
the 20 minutes away where Tucker works, is like a tiny little Zen temple, and there are two monks who live there. One of them's super old and can barely hear. Super funny. And I've gone there a few times and like talked to them and have meditated there with them, and that was cool. So I was like, I'm interested in Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism as like a philosophy is more of a philosophy of practice as opposed to like other philosophies. It's like, it's like you read anything about Zen, it's like you're not gonna get this unless you practice meditation.
Right.
So it's like I wanted to see what that was like. So I had gotten into meditation and like that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And like if I'm gonna go, it's like something that I explained like that I've thought of recently is like if you like the difference between looking at a picture of Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
And going to Japan and seeing Mount Fuji. There's a huge difference between those two things.
Right.
But going and climbing Mount Fuji is like
it's
way
like
over
not even
there.
on the same.
Yeah. So from that perspective, you can't even tell the difference. Looking over here between looking at a picture.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and
having the experience of doing something versus
Yeah.
just seeing it and checking it off a list.
Yeah. Which, like I said, we talked about earlier, but I've also been thinking about it, and to tie it to Jet and other people who may be wanting to try it, I think we are blessed with an opportunity to do sightsee, to see like we do with our Jet every once in a while. Like we'll go to shrines or we'll go and that's cool and all. But I also think we're very fortunate enough. like you were telling me about ringing the bell on New Year's. Like,
Yeah.
you can very much get into the culture here. You can do things that normal tourists can't do.
Yeah.
Which is, I would absolutely, to me, like you were saying, those things are a million times better than, like, I like seeing temples. I like seeing shrines. I'll take pictures. I'll enjoy it in the moment.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. But for memory's sake, to do something that, like, that everyone else in the country does, because, like, that's their culture. That's what they believe in. Like you said, like you said at New Year's. So New Year's here, it's at a shrine, correct? You go to a shrine, or is it a temple?
We went to a temple. We went to a Buddhist temple.
So you go to a temple, and everyone kind of rings this bell 3 times.
It's like a big bell, and then there's
It's a piece of wood, isn't it?
Piece of wood or something, and there's a rope in you.
Yeah. And you do it 3 times, and it's like good luck and good fortune. But, like, everyone here does it. It's a part of their culture. It's a part of their tradition. It's very similar to, like, in the United States, watching the ball drop in New York, and, like,
then making out with someone.
Yeah, and then kissing somebody at midnight. So, I mean, I didn't get to do that because I was back in America. But, like you were just saying, you had that, like, you were able to do that because of living there, and I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
With Jet and
because if you come to visit Japan and you're here for 2 weeks, you hit Tokyo, you hit Osaka, you hit Nara, you feed the deer in Nara, you go to Kyoto, you do the Philosopher's Walk, which is where the temples are, you do this and that, and then you check all this stuff off the list, and then you go home.
Yeah.
But it's like, we are going to be affected by this experience in ways that we are never going to be able to articulate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
it's just going to become a part of who we are.
The other thing, you mentioned the burger festival, and I think festivals are the greatest things. I've only been to a couple festivals, but they're the greatest thing because it's like that. There's nothing more Japanese than festivals. They love festivals. Festivals are the coolest thing. Absolutely go to festivals if you're ever here. Whether you're a tourist or not, like, doesn't matter. If you're ever in Japan,
I don't even know what to compare it to.
You can't. There's nothing to compare it to in America.
We just don't have them.
And hopefully, once I get a camera to take out and about with me, I can take it to a festival and kind of film a festival because they're next level. They're fantastic. It's
like food and
it's like a fair, but way less dirty and way cooler.
And way more community oriented.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I freaking love festivals. I could go on about festivals. They're amazing. But no, yeah, I would agree with you. I think so far for me, the best trips that I've done are stuff where I've been not so much sightseeing, but more of being a part of the community and or doing something a part of the culture and getting indulged in that, because it's just like you said, it becomes a part of you. It's not just like let me show you these pictures of this trip that I did, and I can't recite anything about these temples. I was just at these temples.
I saw these.
Yeah, I know nothing about them.
I'm cultured.
As opposed to here's a picture of this grandma who took me to the temple where we rang the New Year's a bell for New it's a completely different it's a completely different experience, and it's next level, and I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
But on that, I think I have a couple more questions lined up. The next one might be a little difficult. Probably not for you though, because you're a pretty straight shooter. You've been here 7 months now, coming to the end of January. 7 months.
Yeah, I guess.
And as we stated earlier, this is your one run. You're a one and done player. I guess so far, granted it's still early, what would you say is your biggest takeaway from this? It's a tough one.
Something I want to say, if you don't know, is that you have to decide by the second week of January whether.
Oh yeah, you have to decide really quick about if you're gonna stay. They pre-warned me. I don't know about you. They warned me that they were gonna ask me back in October.
Yeah.
And then they officially asked me.
That's what they're told. They're told by.
Yeah. The higher ups.
People's.
Yeah.
Tell your ALTs by October. They have to
start thinking
by
about
January.
it. Yeah, I was gonna say, and then they asked me in December to at least think about it, but I knew then that I wanted to stay, so I went ahead and told them that I was gonna stay. But they give you until, like you were just saying,
second week of January.
Here in January, so it's a very quick process.
And then once you decide and once you sign the paperwork and it's final, you really can't change it.
I hope I'm not changing your mind now with all these questions.
No, it's fine. What was the question?
The question, biggest takeaway.
Biggest takeaway?
Yeah. Whether it be like you realizing you want to do grad school, or just like realizing stuff about yourself, or just I don't know, anything's correct answer. It's your life. What's your biggest takeaway from this? Something that you'll tell your grandkids. I didn't expect it to be that deep of a question, but I mean,
it's a tough
it is a tough
biggest
question.
takeaway?
I guess if I had to think about mine, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I feel like a lot of what I'm going to get out of this is going to be things that I'm not going to see. Like other people are going to see, or they're going to be things that like you're not going to be able to talk about. It's like
So would you be cliche and say it's been a life-changing experience?
Every moment's a life-changing experience.
I should have saw that one coming from a mile away. But okay,
but it's like,
continue,
how many people decide to live in another country after they graduate from college, even if it's just a year, it's like very small the number of people. So the person that I could have been, if I, let's say, like another option I probably would have had to just like take a year off from school, was I could have worked for this like database company that just like holds data for big companies, like a database. Yeah. So I could have worked for them. Possibly I could have. That's something that I would have. That's an avenue that I would have chosen because I had a good relationship with their family, and I think that could have been really cool to get into that field or whatever, just to see what that's like from a business standpoint. And then coming here, it's like I have no idea the kind of person that I would be now if I had not come here. Right. And I'll never know. Yeah. And I don't know. It's like I don't know how things are going to change when I go back to the U.S. Because when I go back it's probably going to be another year before I go to school. I'd probably go back in August, and then I'd have applications that will be due December, January, February. Right. For the fall of 2019. Right. So I'll have a year, and it'll be weird. I mean, having gone to grad school, having gone to school and like pretty much having my parents help me out most of the way. Like I have some loans, but like I didn't have to worry about that. Right. And then coming here and like having bills and stuff. And then being in a culture, like a completely different culture and like a completely different language and things like that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm like trying to just say things and then just like have something pop into my head as like something to take away.
I kind of understand. I guess
biggest takeaway.
I guess my biggest takeaway, and I think
it's gonna be all the manga. My biggest takeaway is
okay.
The biggest away.
This man has a ridiculous manga
all
collection.
Of the manga. I have like
you have a lot.
I have like 3 or 4, and I want more because I love anime, Japanese anime, and there are particular shows that like are my favorites, and I've seen the anime, so I know like that I like it. So I bought the whole manga, and I try to read it, and I can't. So, but I'm anticipating that my Japanese will get better. Right. So I want to have it because it's harder to get in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a bunch of pretty easy manga that I read now to help me study, and then I have more difficult stuff, and then I have some light novels. And then I have some like actual literature, like Haruki Murakami is one of my favorite writers. He's a Japanese writer, but he also has his English translations that are really really good.
Gotcha.
And I have a few of his in Japanese, and like that's the goal. I'll just like have those on my desk and be like, and just flip through and be like, nope, not even close.
Not even close.
But then like a year later, like hey,
a little better.
I can read that. Hey, all right.
Yeah, I guess going to when you were rambling, trying to figure something to say. Which I think this is similar to what you were saying. For me, so far, my biggest takeaway has been realizing my own independence. So all through college, I always had a roommate. There was one roommate who he was in law school, so he studied a lot, or business school. But he studied a lot, so he spent a lot of his time in his room.
Usually business majors don't study.
Yeah, so he studied a lot. But he was normally in his room a lot. Every once in a while, like we'd bump in the living room and talk, or bump on the way home. But that felt like I was living alone, but I obviously wasn't. And then on top of that, when it came to groceries and stuff, I could just call up mom, or mom would come down for a weekend, and we'd go buy groceries together.
Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Thank you a million times over. Don't know what I would have done without you. Well, I'd be doing what I'm doing now. But I mean, that's what I'm saying is like realizing my own independence of, okay, I need to do laundry because I need to have clean clothes for my job. Like, I need to go get groceries. I need to, like I've never realized, I've always thought of myself as a responsible person, even though I procrastinated in school a little bit. But it's a very eye-opening experience to when it's like, all right, you're in a foreign country living on your own, figure everything out. Like, granted, I've had Veronica, the girl in my town, the other ALT in my town. She's been a lifesaver, as you know.
Yeah.
She's helped me a lot, and my supervisors have helped me and stuff. But like for the most part, after they set me up with my cell phone and like my automatic bills, they're kind of just like, all right, here's how you do everything. I hope you remember.
Hope you do well.
And if not, it's just a lot of trial and error. And like the funny story that I tell is my friend. She lived here for a little, but she decided to stay back in the States after Christmas break. She pointed out that like at convenience stores, it seems like I know what I'm doing. Got to turn this off real quick. It seems like I know what I'm doing, but I don't. I've just learned the pattern of the questions they're gonna ask.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I mean, I probably do know what they're saying.
Yeah.
But 90% of the time,
translate it for you.
No, yeah, 90% of the time, I just know what they're gonna ask, so I just have my answer prepared. Yeah. But like stuff like that, just my own independence has been really eye opening for me. Of like just my responsibilities of financing, even buying a ticket to fly home from it, like that was incredible. And I talked about it in the last video of just like that was my first time traveling alone because with Jet I flew here in a group, and when I came here in high school it was in a group. So for me to navigate these airports that I've never been to by myself and like find all my gates and find my it was just really cool. I felt really
and I think that's something that
it's just wild.
Yeah, people coming out of school, a lot of kids who come out of
fresh out of college are kind of panicked.
Because you're at the top of the world when you're a senior in college.
Yes, you
and
are.
Then all of a sudden, you're just at the bottom. You're like the base level.
The cliche line of everyone being like, "Well, welcome to the real world." Yeah, it's like
because you get you got to figure all that stuff out, and like
then on top of that, figuring out in a foreign country.
Yeah, and doing it in a foreign country. Now it's like
I feel
going to America and going to the store
will be a million times
speaking
easier.
English to me. It's gonna be bizarre.
I feel my big thing is it'll be bizarre, but I genuinely feel like I can handle anything life wants to throw at me. I mean, in terms of like, oh, my car broke down. What do I do? Like, that's not going to bother me now. Because when my car, if you don't know, the first car that I had here was a manual car. It was an older, and it had been driven a lot. So the clutch burned out very shortly when I had it. And so I was freaking out. I had to like contact my supervisor, and we took it to the shop, and like there was just a lot of procedure with it. But I ended up buying a new car. Well, a used car still, but new to me. And it had way less miles on it. And it was an automatic. And it's just like, I realized it wasn't the end of the world. Like, yes, it was very stressful to do all that, but I could handle it. And like moments like that have made me realize when I go back to America, if I can handle doing that kind of stuff here where I barely speak the language, doing it in my own native tongue is going to be a walk in the park. Yeah.
And I think like, because here, like, you don't get in trouble for making mistakes.
No.
You know, it's like in college and before, like at home, it's like if you made a mistake, like you were reprimanded.
Thanks, Mom.
now it's like if you make a mistake, it's on you. So you can just decide that it's not a big deal. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of...
And like the people around you too, like our supervisors and other people, at first I was like, oh, they're really nice. But then they're like, no, they just see me as an adult who made a mistake just like they make mistakes all the time. You just deal with it. And maybe you burn through your whole paycheck that month. But like, you got to do what you got to do.
I'm going to go ahead and let you know, if you get accepted on the jet and you are fresh out of college, not even if you're fresh out of college, I'll stick to if you're fresh out of college. Your first full paycheck that you get, which will be not after your first month. So, like, because when you start halfway through a month, so your first paycheck you get is half your normal paycheck, but then that next month you get your first full paycheck, which I'm not going to say how much it is. You get accepted, they give you all that information, don't worry. When you get that first paycheck, you are going to blow through it so fast just because...
I didn't do that.
I did. I burnt my paycheck so fast. Well, one...
It's just crazy because you have all this money.
Well, it's not only that. It's that you have a lot of money, but my big thing was I needed groceries. I needed stuff, and then on top of that, I wanted to buy stuff for myself. So after buying
you can do that, and it's like you should.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
before it's like, oh, you want to spend money on video games? Like, shouldn't you like save that for
college,
retirement?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
No, yeah, it's absolutely you're gonna blow through your paycheck, whether it be one of your paychecks in your tenure here. You're gonna blow through it just by.
Oh yeah, going to Osaka, Kyoto. Yeah, I spent that whole thing.
Yeah, especially traveling.
Sounds
They'll
awful.
do it. You could be responsible and
especially
maybe
because you deal in cash because it's a cash society. So you just...
as I've mentioned, I maybe not. It's very deceiving here as an American because their highest coin is 500 yen, which is about $5. So when I first came
so when you pay with change, it's
when you pay with change, you're like, it's no big deal.
I just spent $15 in change.
Yeah, you just got to be aware. But it's your money. Do whatever.
It's fun.
Do what you want with it.
Something I definitely realized, like, because our whole lives, at least for me, it's been a long time. Our whole lives, like,
we'll wrap it up soon.
At least for me, like, you gotta save.
Yeah.
And you gotta make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's like
that's life.
But it's like.
But you don't.
You really don't.
Yeah, no.
It's like it depends on the lifestyle you want to live.
Well, and I also feel like it's, which, hear me out. I feel like it's also just the difference of society, right?
Yeah.
So in America, you're aware of people, since that's our country, that's what we grew up in. You're aware of how people perceive things. So it's like if someone sees you spend, $100 on books, not books, manga, so like comic books, they're gonna be like, what's wrong with you? Like you shouldn't do that. You're an adult. Like you save that money for whatever. But here, that's okay. Like it's a completely different society where everyone's just like, like you were just saying, you're an adult. Like if you want to spend your money, I don't care. Like as long as there's kind of a mindset here from our experience. What we kind of talked about is as long as you aren't harming others and you're not struggling like to get by day to day in your life, like as long as you can still eat and you can still do your job and make payments like your bills and stuff, the rest, whatever you do, that's on you. You can drink all day.
The number of functioning alcoholics in Japan,
it's insane. I've shared a video about it on Facebook before because like salarymen will just work all day, go get drunk, and then wake up on the street the next day and be like, oh, I'll go back to work now. It's like it's a crazy society, and
that happens in the U.S. too. But people
shame them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a different topic for a different day. I don't want to make things. I want to stick to this as close to Jet as we can. Yeah. Since we've been going on for a little over an hour now, we can wrap this up. And I'll hit you with the last question that I had for you, which is, since you're coming to an end, that means someone's going to replace you.
Ooh.
Which, hey, if you replace Griffin, hi, I'm Cameron. I'll be in the same town as you. We can maybe do this. You can take his spot, and we can do a video if I'm still doing these. I probably will be. To the question, though, what is some advice that you would give someone who either A, is applying for JET and has their interviews coming up or just finished their interviews or whatever, and they're nervous, or somebody who wants to do JET but is afraid? Or like, what's just advice that you have for someone coming into JET, either whether it be wanting to apply or somebody who's like in the interview process, to any of them? What's your advice since you've been here for a year?
For 6 months.
Well, you'll have 6 months.
Well,
it's another punch out question.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Answer now. Go.
No, I mean you don't have to answer now. Just don't leave too much empty space.
So I don't know. I mean, like most people, I think I was pretty nervous in general.
Right.
Like going to a foreign country, of course, like not knowing the language, like making mistakes, things like that. But something that I've probably figured out is that like this is just like a life thing too, I think. Mistakes, failures, like you decide if you make mistakes or you fail. It's really up to you.
That's your whole philosophy. Brain coming out.
Yeah. Like
no, I get what you're saying, but yeah, continue.
You know, because like there are things here that I've done and things that have happened that I look at the situations and I'm like, no, like that was dumb, or like, oh, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to like the language barrier and like doing appropriate things when it comes to like cultural norms here and things like that. And definitely read up on cultural norms here, like that's important to know.
Absolutely. I mean, if you make it here,
You'll go through orientation.
You'll go through
so
orientation. We'll talk about them, but you should probably still have a little bit of like a prior
But it's
knowledge.
like everyone here, and I don't know. I think I'll get a better idea of the comparison when I go back to the U.S. But here, it's like people. I don't know. It's like people genuinely care whether you're like good, like whether you're like you're
good,
all right,
like mentally.
Yeah, like not mentally as in like
just like in like I can't. I think I know what you're trying to say, and to pull it into my own experience, I cannot count how many times people that I've worked with for 7 months now, still to this day, will ask me like, "Do you get homesick? Are you adjusted to living in Japan? Like, are you okay?" They genuinely concerned about how you like. They absolutely are concerned about how you feel, and they want to make sure that you aren't miserable, especially for people. So some people, I mean, living arrangements are different for everyone. But you and I, you live by. I mean, granted, Tucker lives next to you, but you live in your own apartment. Like you live by yourself. I live by myself, and like I think they're aware of what that can do to someone fresh out of college.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you're trying to say is like they just they're concerned about.
Yeah, people are genuinely concerned, and like I think it has a lot to do with the culture in general. It's very much more collective.
Yeah.
As opposed to our culture, which is much more individualistic.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's just I don't know. There's a lot of support. I just feel so supported by like the community of people. Like even though there are some people that I'm like I don't necessarily like not that I don't get along with, but like I'm just like like whatever.
Kind of neutral with.
Yeah. Like I know that like if I ever needed something, like I could go and talk to them. And I feel like that's so cliche, but I remember in college all the university ever talked about was like community.
Yeah.
And like blah 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 blah. But like as soon as a kid like was caught like, smoking weed or like drinking or something like on campus and like it happened a bunch of times, it was like you're out.
Yeah.
And it's not like let's do everything we can to make sure this person's okay and get them into you know what I mean? It's like and sure, that may be the motivation for why they would be, removed from the environment of the university.
Right.
But in general, people see it as like, oh, they failed.
Yeah,
I think, and that's just not the mentality.
No, I think to wrap this up and to put a bow on it, it's similar to what I would say is, although it seems like you're coming to this alone and like you're gonna feel really isolated, you're absolutely not. Like I met Griffin. So when you come here, you have to do orientation in Tokyo for 3 days. I didn't even meet you at orientation. I don't.
No, like you meet a lot of people from all over the place. I only talked to a couple people that I met.
Yeah, I met way too many people at orientation. But after orientation, you all break up to fly or take a bus or whatever to your prefecture. And so, oddly enough, Griffin and I sat next to each other on our flight.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really talk much on the flight because I was still kind of coping with being on my own and being here. So I just
was trying to memorize my introduction in Japanese to introduce myself.
And then after, it would have been...
It was a couple weeks later.
Yeah, like within the first month of us being in our town, in our prefecture, they sent you to what's called Kenshukan, which was just like...
I think that's not in every town.
No, yeah, I don't think that's everywhere. That's
our prefecture does it, not every prefecture.
Yeah, and so...
Really?
It was like like 5 days, or was it a whole week?
Yeah, no, I think it was a whole week.
A whole week of just like
Japanese
accelerated
class.
Japanese studying. And oddly enough, one of the first people that I saw there was Griffin, and we just recognized each other from the flight, and so we kind of just started talking and hit it off real well, and became friends, and here we are now. But you're going back to my point is you're not alone when you come here. Like you are the polar opposite of alone. You get on like you fly from America or from Ireland or from Australia, New Zealand,
South Africa,
wherever you're from, you're gonna fly with a group of people who are also in jet. And then you're going to be in Tokyo with everyone from the world who's in jet. And you'll find immediately to make friends. And you're not alone is the big thing. And to really finish it off, a quote that I'm obsessed with right now, and I actually wrote in my middle school's yearbook for the end of the year. It's Jim Carrey, and he's said it on numerous occasions, but I like the one that he says on his new documentary, Jim and Andy, on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No.
You should watch it. It's really good. But he talks about his dad, who was an accountant, his dad could have been a comedian. He said his dad was very funny. He's a great guy. but didn't feel like that was a safe choice. Like there was a chance of failure in his eyes. So he became an accountant, and after I want to say like 10 years, got fired from that job. And Jim and his family, and then they pretty much lived on the street and struggled meal to meal. And he said, what I've taken from that experience in my life is you can fail. You can fail. I don't know, how does he word it? He words it so well, and now I've forgotten it. You can fail at what you love, but you can fail at what you don't love. So do what you love. There's really no choice that you have to make. Something along those lines. I may have not said it perfectly, but the point being is, you could take the risk of doing this JET program. You could apply, and it could get turned down. You can not get in it, which sucks. I have a friend who, he didn't make it, and it does suck. It hurts because I was supporting him along the way, and he's a very smart dude. He should be here, in my opinion, but at the same time, there's no reason not to do it. Like if it's what you want to do, it's what you love. There's just as much of chance failing as that as there is of like, oh, let me go get this job that's supposed to be real secure. Like you can get fired from that job in a year.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no guarantees in life. There's a negative, like there's always a chance of it not going your way. But you'll never, like it's super
you'll never
cliche.
Know until you never know until you try.
But you'll never know unless you at least give it a shot. And like, it's terrifying. Absolutely, it's terrifying.
And imagining your life more than, God, even a year in the future is just, it's almost not worth, it's definitely not worth stressing about. Which is a problem I have.
Yeah. I mean, my big thing with JET is it's a roller coaster. Applications were terrifying. Interviews were terrifying. Getting the news that I was going was absolutely wonderful.
It was amazing.
Packing for the trip was terrifying. Coming here was mixed emotions, and like but that's just part of it. And
as soon as I got here, it was just like, woo! What's happening?
It's euphoric. So like, I just, my encouragement to anyone who wants to do JET or is doing JET or is thinking about JET or anything in terms of Japan, just do it. If you want to come visit Japan, do it. Like life is too short and it flies by too fast to not do something that you want to do. And I would absolutely recommend coming to this country. It's beautiful. It's got a great history. It's one of a kind. And I don't want anyone to not do this out of fear. Like this job, even if only for a year, like you said, it's not that you hate this job. It's that you have there's
other things that I want.
This year has opened up other opportunities for you. Right. And I think that's the big thing to take away from this is just give it a shot, man. It's not the worst thing that you could do in life. But this has been an hour and 17 minutes, much longer than normal. I hope you enjoyed it. Time to throw the cliche YouTube lines of please like it, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to.
Like us on Facebook, Twitter, all that other
you don't need to do all of that.
Are we on other social media stuff?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't think so.
I want to do this with other people that I'm friends with and other people that are Jets to get their opinion on it. But obviously only if people tolerated this hour. I don't know if they'll always be this long. We kind of have a tendency to ramble. But let me know if you like this, if you want me to do more of these. Like I said, in the future, I want to get a camera to, take it out in the world so you can see where I live and stuff like that. But in the meantime, if you have any questions for little vlog rants that I do about Japan, leave them down in the comments or message me too. Or
if you like me.
Or for
because I just got that new coupon for the burger place. So like, if people want to see more of me, it'll give me an excuse to get a burger at the burger place.
If you have questions for the philosophical Griffin, feel free to leave them. I would love to have him back on again. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Give him a funny little. Give him a. All right, Griffin. Thank you.